Welcome to No Entry Level, where we confront executives about their hidden pasts. Just kidding. This is actually a podcast about hiring, managing, and yes, firing entry-level employees. We explore what it takes to build or break great early career talent. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll never look at your entry-level employees the same way again. I am your host, Jeremy Smith. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pegasix, an entirely new kind of higher ed that produces AI-first entry-plus employees. And with me today is Adam Hopson, COO of Flyhomes, which has built a wholesale lending platform that makes it possible for home buyers to buy their next home before selling their current one. Adam.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
It's a pleasure. Before we kind of get into it, tell me a little bit about Flyhomes.
So Flyhomes is a lending company for people buying homes, and we solve a problem that's pretty universal for people buying a home and also selling. Most people, what they have to do, just practically, is they have to sell their house first, and then figure out somewhere to live, either with family or in a rental, while they look for another home to buy. In some cases, they can line up those two transactions, but it's really difficult to do. You're at a disadvantage if you're making an offer on a home that's contingent on the sale of your current home, and so we've solved all the problems that that are inherent in that, and we've got some lending products that enable regular people to buy their next home before selling the current one. This is something that if you're really wealthy, you can do no problem, because if you've got a $10 million stock portfolio, many people don't realize you can go and borrow against that at a pretty low rate, and you borrow against that, buy a house for cash. That's where a lot of these cash buyers come from. People often wonder, like, gosh, often it's people who have other assets that they can leverage and borrow against, and then buy something for cash, and then they might put a mortgage on it. But we've enabled the every person to do that who doesn't have a $10 million stock portfolio.
I love that. And I wish, or more specifically, I'm sure my co-founder, one of my two co-founders, wishes that he had known about you about 2 months ago, because he was stuck in that exact situation. So that would have been really nice. I can't wait to tell him now that it's all settled and taken care of. I can't wait to tell him that you guys exist.
We hear that a lot. Yeah, we want to catch those people before they're in that situation, but for the next time and for everyone else that he knows.
Exactly. And then if you don't mind, just give a little brief history on yourself.
I started my career in investment banking in 2007 in New York City, and I was at Lehman Brothers. And so Lehman Brothers famously went bankrupt in 2008. I learned a lot through the experience. It wasn't necessarily the experience I was aiming to have. I also worked on the bankruptcy for a while, unwinding some of the assets and in the wreckage, and had a really fascinating experience. I went to law school and business school, a joint program, and then spent 4 years at McKinsey & Company, big consulting firm. I've been in strategic and corporate development and operational roles at 3 different companies: Expedia, and then Pluralsight, a company that's sort of in your space, in Pegasix, and for the last almost 5 years at Flyhomes, which is the earliest stage I've ever been, and we're building something really special, I think.
I love it. Well, since this is a podcast about entry-level jobs and all things entry-level, let's get into it. First question for you: what challenges have you faced? I mean, it can be at Flyhomes, it can be at other places too. When it came to hiring early career talent, whether it's skills gaps, or technical skills, soft skills, attitude, work ethic, whatever it might be. What's kind of the challenges? What have the challenges been?
I don't want to gripe against a younger generation or anything, because I think every generation is different, and but one of the challenges with every generation with early career people is being able to make sure that they have enough guidance and mentorship. Like, that's something I think people forget, is that to really set somebody up for success, if they don't have a lot of corporate experience, they need a bit more guidance in how to navigate an organization, how to communicate, how to interpret things. they just need that, and we all needed it at one point, and we got it either from somebody who was really a consciously good leader, or we just kind of picked it up on our own. And so, especially at a smaller organization today, we have to make sure that if we're going to bring in entry level people, that we have the bandwidth to give them the proper guidance and mentorship. That I think is the biggest thing that I would
Right.
that I
Yeah.
would say that I've seen.
Yeah. No, and I'd say that's true. I mean, from me on my side, on the corporate end of things, but then like you said, with me when I started my career, it was the same thing. I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. And so, if they don't have someone on the other end, then either they have to pick it up themselves, exactly like you said, or they just kind of wash out and have to go to some other company or some other
I'll
career path.
share a vulnerable story about this. I was in my very first job at Lehman Brothers. I was using Outlook for the first time. I'd never used Outlook email, and I'd never really used email for a corporate purpose.
Oh God. Is this a reply all horror story? Go on.
But um, no, it was one where I should have had everyone in the BCC, and everyone was in the CC. All of our clients knew who all the other clients were. That was an embarrassing one. I got an earful over that one.
Oh gosh, I just got a feeling in the pit of my stomach from just hearing that, the sympathy pains I feel, especially because I started my career in investment banking too, and I
Oh
mean
yeah.
that pressure
Oh yeah.
cooker with those people to do
Yeah.
that specific mistake is just I can already feel my sweat glands opening, and it's as I sort of harken back to those days and making that sort of mistake, which I had, and just the feeling of utter dread when it
We I don't know if in investment banks now still send out comps. They spread the comps, and basically here's the
yeah.
financial uh, performance of all the companies in your space. And so it was my job to send that out, and nobody told me like, hey, make sure that this is in the BCC. I had to look at the past ones and realize, oh yeah, BCC is not something that
Right.
I'd really used that much at that point. And
No,
I
I didn't know that it
I
existed.
copied and
Yeah,
pasted
same way.
the list and sent it out, and it was all clean, looked great. And then a very senior investment banker came, and managing director, and boy, he was mad. If look at all these are like the
Oh,
senior most people at all these big media companies. That was embarrassing. The one
oh
I was
my
doing
gosh.
chair
Yeah.
actually was
That
just a little thing. I also in Outlook, I was scheduling meetings, and the default when in the drop down at the time was just every half an hour, and so I thought that I have to, I guess I can only schedule meetings on the half hour, and so I scheduled something, and it was supposed to be on the 15 minutes or something, and a really kind guy came to me, and he recognized what was going on, and he was like, you can actually enter the cell and manually change the time. All meetings don't have to start and end on the half hour.
Microsoft dictates
You
what
will
your
have
meeting
half
schedule
hour
is
and
going to
hour.
be. That sort of stuff that we're talking about right now, it drives me nuts. And honestly, those sorts of things are what added up to ultimately have me start building Pegasus. Is what had we just spent the last 4 years and $100,000 doing? Like, how on earth could we literally nothing for that next step in life? What were the 4 previous years about? Because it sure wasn't getting us ready for what came next. And, as I noticed that for everyone around me, especially I started investment banking, I was a business major, but with a marketing communications concentration. I didn't know anything about finance. Um, But the other analysts in my cohort, they were finance majors from, Darden and
Mhm.
Penn and all those places, and they knew just about as much as I did starting, the analyst program. I mean, they didn't know anything either, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"How is this possible? How do you not know this stuff? Aren't you supposed to, like, isn't that
Yeah.
what you specialized in for the last 4 years? And, it boggled my mind and then angered me and then
That's
moved me
awesome.
to action. When you are looking at entry level candidates, given that, as we're talking about, they don't typically come armed with the skills that you need, what makes a candidate stand out in your process? And again, it can be at Flyhomes, it can just be anywhere along your career journey. What are those things that, you're looking for
I
that
think
makes
the
someone
biggest
stand
thing
out?
is just evidence that they are someone um, who's going after it. Somebody who is who yeah, somebody
They have a
who's
motor.
clearly curious about the world and you know, focusing on their own growth and
Yes.
development. You can see that in people's backgrounds based on the experiences that they have, based on challenges that they go after, um, and then also in how they present themselves, or also in how they reach out to you. I have tons of respect for people who will
Yeah.
just reach out proactively. Less respect when it's clearly a canned email like that. But if they've done the work to do a little research on my background and hey, we've got some connection, or maybe it's just a tenuous connection. Like I see that you know this person, and I also know
Right.
this person, but I'm not really that well. And you
Right.
went to this
But at
college,
least
I
they'll
went
put
to
in
a
the
college
effort.
in the same region at least.
I mean, I
There
went
you
to an
go.
SEC college.
But at least there's some effort to find a connection. I really want to connect with you. I I am more than willing to
Yeah.
give time to those people, and I think most people are because somebody did for us at some point in our careers. But it
Yeah.
shows that that's the kind of person that's gonna, when there's a problem, they're gonna figure out a way around it. And the problem in that case is, how do I get in touch
Yeah.
with this person?
No, exactly. And then, like you said, they were thoughtful about it because they could have been like, "How did I get them to notice me?" I'll just send them a cold,
Send out
templated
100 of
email.
those, you
But
probably will get
like you said,
some responses, but
right?
maybe not the best responses.
No, exactly. But if they put a little more thought into it, then you're like, okay, this is a thoughtful person, and you know how what you do is what you will do, and so they're going to be thoughtful, like you said, in the future when they run into other issues and problems or
Yeah,
whatever
you got me
situation it might be.
thinking as we're talking about this, like for entry level people, early career people, going for jobs, it's not so much about what you know. In some cases, like you need to know some basics, but it really is the kind of person that you are. Like you're the kind of person that's gonna, maybe you're gonna make an embarrassing mistake with the reply all or the BCC, but you're gonna learn immediately. You're gonna learn all these things very quickly, and you're gonna be proactive about your learning and your development. It's that kind of thing that's the most attractive. It's the kind of person that you are, that you've demonstrated that you've been throughout your learning and other work experiences. Less about, I know
Yes.
this technical thing, because we all know you probably don't know it as well as you're gonna know 6 months into the job.
When you talk about that learning, whether it came from the BCC or the technical thing, whatever it might be, that was something else that sort of inspired Pegasus in the way that we do it, which is, there are no lectures or textbooks or tests or anything like that. It is entirely learn by doing. Because what I noticed, whether it was investment banking or whatever future job I had or other entry levels I hired into, the only way they learned to do the job was by doing the job, right? None of us sat down in lectures during our first year at our first employer, or read textbooks or took tests. We made that 0 to 1 journey just by doing it and by failing
Uh-huh.
along the way, right? And that failure was key, and that's, we call it continuous failure, right? That's where we give the students just enough to go, and they go as far as they can, figuring it out on their own with their teams until they hit a failure point, which they will, right? It's either a point where they just literally are stuck and cannot go any further, or they think they're done. But as we know, in your early career, you think you're done, it's garbage and you're not done. There's many
Yep.
things that can be improved about it, right? And so that's when, they're not teachers, they're more like the proto bosses of the students, kind of step in and give them, a 90-second coach up or a 5-minute whiteboarding session, just again, just like on the job. And it gets them unstuck. Off they go until they hit another failure point. And you just rinse and repeat, right? Do, fail, coach, do, fail, coach. And that's how you make that 0 to 1 journey, by doing it and failing. So it's literally like riding a bike. right? It's the
So
same
is
exact
Pegasus
experience.
intended to be a replacement for traditional university?
It is, yeah. It's meant to be a superior alternative because on the one side, it's 1 year, 15K, 100% experiential and completely career focused. Each career accelerator is what we call them. Each one is focused on a single career path. And when the kids graduate, they are what we call a Pegasus. That's thus the name, which is an AI first entry plus employee who doesn't need any employer training because they come with the technical skills and the soft skills of a second or third year employee from day one, which is what an entry level should be, in my opinion, right? They shouldn't join and go, okay, what's a product manager or what's an analyst, right? And what do I do and how do I use this
Yeah.
tool, which is how we all
We're
were,
sort of
right?
taxes on
They,
the organization until we get our feet under us.
yes, yes, that's exactly right. It's a huge tax on you. There's no lift. It's all tax for the first year or so, which is, by the way, why we make our program a year, because we found it to be a universal truth that it takes 1 year to go from 0 to 1. No more, no less. And the reason we know that is because all of us and anyone we've ever known, it was around the end of the 12-month period, our first 12 months on our first job, when pretty much everybody goes, okay, okay, now I got this, right? Not from like a VP level or a director level, but from an entry level. It's like, okay, I got this, right? It's just a year. And for whatever, reason of human nature, and anything less and you cannot graduate with mastery, and anything more and you're just wasting these kids time and money. It just a year is where you can give an employer a 1, right? Who is just ready to go. And the only thing the employer has to do is essentially, customize them for, oh, hey, we do our stand-ups a little differently around here. And we use this ticketing, proprietary ticketing tool, but the truth is employers have to do that for employees
Right.
at every level, right? If some director comes from a different company, you have to have the same conversation, right? We do stand-ups a little
But it's
differently
different
here.
when
We use this ticketing
the
tool,
very concept of a stand-up is totally foreign. Where
right?
say, what do you mean ticket?
Exactly. You should not have to teach them how to do the job you just hired them for. It's a crazy thing that we just all got used to, over the
Yeah.
last 50, 60 years. And it's like, yeah, 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 no, they just spent 4 years, I don't know, doing what or paying for what. But now it's our job, as an employer, to make it so they're useful to us. And I was like, look, if we're going to live in a world where it's up to the employer to make it useful, then why does college need to exist? But that's when I said, well, you know what? I think that is the job of college, or I guess of higher ed, and thus said there's a better way to do this. And that's where the idea for Pegasus and the career accelerators came. And in the end, it enables students to start their career 3 years earlier, and $350,000 ahead of where they would have been had they gone to college, after 4 years. And for employers, they get the first ever job ready entry level workforce.
It's similar in concept to the like coding boot camps where when I was at Pluralsight, there was kind of a stigma at one point where like, oh, you just went to a boot camp. But then I saw people becoming engineering leaders who had, you look at what they studied in college and it was like humanities or West Western
Right.
European art or whatever, and and
Right.
now they're an engineering leader, and it all started with a boot camp because they
Yeah.
learned most of it on the job, but that got them in the door.
The interesting thing is we are not like a boot camp, but it is because of boot camps that we can exist. Because boot camps laid the foundation, exactly as you're describing. They laid the foundation for the tech industry, for hiring, software developer and even product manager roles that you didn't have to go the traditional path, right? And that was a reason that the first 2 accelerators we're launching next year, one for software developer, one for product manager, is because of the foundation the boot camps laid, right? Because as much as I love revolutionary ideas, they are the least likely to succeed
Yeah.
in the short and medium term. And so that's why I was like, but if we start with software developer and product manager, that is just an evolutionary step from boot camps. And the biggest difference, well, there are a bunch of differences between the career accelerator category we're creating and boot camps, but all the differences all source back or point back to a single source, a single difference, which is who our students are. So with boot camps, their students are career
Yeah.
switchers. With our students, they are graduating high school seniors, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
college alternative. And that one difference changes everything. For example, I talked about how we have a 1-year program, right? Because it takes a year to get entry level mastery. It just does. And that's why the boot camps, and you had even sort of said it indirectly, which is they still had to learn most of the stuff on the job because they still weren't job ready coming from the boot camps. They might have been better than college graduates, knew a little more than them, but not much. And they still had to learn on the job. And so it was still, friction and drag on the employer. And that's because boot camp programs were 6 weeks or 3 months. And if you do anything less than a year, you cannot achieve mastery. But the reason they did that, they had to, because their students were career switchers. These are people with mortgages and car payments and kids. They must earn income, right? They can't go a year not earning income, right? And so the boot camps are like, well, we can do it in 6 weeks. We can do it in 6 weeks. They can't do it in 6 weeks. They
Right.
could take their money from them in 6 weeks, but you cannot go from 0 to 1 in 6 weeks or 3 months or a year part-time, right? It takes 1 year full-time dedication to make the 0 to 1 journey. And because our students are graduating high school seniors, then they were planning to
Right.
take 4 years off full-time, right? And like, great news, you only need to take 1 year off full-time and you're gonna get more than
You
you
know,
ever would have.
going back to I'm sure we'll get to AI, but going back to like the tax on the organization, like historically, kind of for a very entry level person, the trade off is, well, we got to train them up and stuff, but in the meantime, there's all this grunt work that we can have them do, and that grunt work has
Right,
gone away.
exactly. Yes. So you know what? That's a perfect segue. We should go on the road together. You perfect setup, man. Which is has the rise of AI changed your thinking around entry level employees?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's really tricky for people starting out because I did a whole lot of grunt work early in my career.
Mhm. Printing pitch
At least that
books
was
and all
a,
that
a
stuff.
physical world. I don't know if they do that as much
Yeah,
anymore,
true.
but
True, true, true.
um, but just a lot of grunt work that also just like research work, where there are things even now where I've always thought, oh, it's a little bit of an advantage that I'm really familiar with SEC documents and where to find certain information, and I can find information that other people can't.
Right.
Well, now anyone can find that
Yes.
information. You just go ask Gemini or ChatGPT, and it'll pull it up right there for you. And so I
Yep.
I just had this experience just recently, and I've been trying to share this with my own team and get everyone using AI as much as possible. But
Yep.
I had a task that needed to be done. Probably would have taken a couple of hours. Very manual. It it was beyond an executive assistant. It required a little bit of research and stuff, but it was just very manual. And I was thinking to myself like, oh, this is something that'd be really nice to have an analyst that I could throw this to. And then I realized, wait a minute, I could probably write a good prompt and get Gemini to do this. And so I had to. It was extracting things from images that I had, and so I just uploaded it all, wrote a really good prompt. 30 seconds later, it's done. This thing that probably would have taken an entry level person half a day to do. So I shared that with my
Yeah.
team, and I was like, we should all be doing this. Let's use it to the fullest extent. But what that means for somebody coming out of college is that trade-off of, hey, you train
Yeah.
me and I do all your grunt work. You don't have as much to offer there,
Right.
and I don't know what the answer is.
No,
It's really tough.
yeah, I do. Starts with a P and ends with a 6.
I'm such a good setup man, aren't I?
Yeah. You are fantastic. And it's interesting. It's so interesting what you say because there's been so much chatter out there about AI is replacing entry level, and the angst has been really directed at AI. And what I've said to people is it it is misdirected angst for the most part, because the problem isn't with the AI. Anyone who's used any AI tools, and I've used a lot because I'm a productivity tool fiend. I just love trying. I've always, even well before AI, I've just always loved trying different productivity tools. And I've tried, I don't even know how many AI tools. I mean, it's at least, it has to be 100 over the last couple of years. And for the most part, they're fine. In some instances, they're miraculous. And in others, they are indescribably frustrating. Um, eh, but as a whole, they can't replace a person. They're just not good enough yet. Yet they are replacing entry level employees. And the reason for that isn't because the AI is so amazing. It's good right now, right? It's fine. It's the problem is that entry level employees are zeros, right? They bring, like you said, they bring potential, right? They bring the ability to do work no one else wants to do. But you don't need that with AI now. AI is better than a zero. And so, of course, employers are going to use AI rather than a zero, which a zero is more probably like a -1 in truth, like you were saying, because it is a lot of drag for that first year.
Not to mention you're paying them.
Exactly, exactly. 10 times, 100 times more than what you're paying the AI. And, so the problem isn't the AI, because the AI is fine, not amazing. The problem is that something fine can replace an entire entry level employee. That's the problem, because the entry level employees come out of college as zeros. And that's where college is the problem. But if you were to give an employer an AI native one, right, of no effort of their own, that beats AI. The way I kind of put it is, robots beat humans, but cyborgs beat robots,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you, as a young person coming up in what we're doing at Pegasix, that's how you make your way in this new world. You need to be a cyborg. You cannot
Yeah,
come
I
out
like
a
that.
human.
I've been telling people, you position yourself as AI native, and that's like your advantage. You grew up with AI, like I mean, nobody really grew up with. Don't position yourself as like I used AI to get through college. It wrote all my essays for me, but rather I know how to use AI in ways that you don't even know. You know, and that's a way to position yourself as an early career person. I was talking with an old colleague, actually from Lehman days, just recently about this, because he was saying his son studied computer science and had a really tough time finding a job, and he said talking with other parents, their kids were having the same struggles, um,
Yep.
and we were kind of comparing the present job market to when cars took over horses, back in they were
Right.
yeah, early 1900s,
Early 19.
and it happened pretty fast. Like, I obviously didn't experience that, but I looked it up, and looks like most of it happened within about 10 years, and then in rural areas it
Yeah.
was another 20, 30 years. Um, but think of all the jobs that were part of that horse-driven economy. People working on carriage companies and wagon companies and wheel makers and the blacksmiths
That's
that
right.
made all the metal parts,
That's right.
breeders,
People
yeah,
who raised
people who
horses,
drove horses.
the people who shoveled the manure, because that was actually becoming a problem, like in society in New York, where they were at a point where they're like, we don't know what we are going to do with all this manure. Like, this is a true crisis. And then the car started to take over and solve that crisis. But still, there were people
Shoveling it,
shoveling
and
manure.
then
That was
probably
their
companies that
job.
did something with it, hauled it off. So there was a whole economy there that
Yeah.
had to shift. And imagine if it was 1910 and you had just completed a prestigious internship at the best carriage company, and then suddenly Henry Ford's got his pumping out Model Ts, and like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like the AI age. If you've just studied computer
Yeah.
science and you've been learning traditional computer science and you realize, oh my gosh, now AI can do 60% of what I just learned how to do, even though that was 10 years, this is just way faster. So many more jobs are
Yeah.
being changed, not necessarily displaced, but some are, but certainly changed. And it's like I said, it's only been 3 years since ChatGPT launched, and now
Yeah.
originally it was just text generation. Like if you're in marketing and you're doing you're a content
Yeah.
writer or something, it's really tough because AI
Right.
can get a 85% version that somebody else can edit really quickly. But now it's also graphic designers and even animators and
Yep.
eventually possibly even filmmakers, and all of that is
Right.
heavily used in business, and then even analysts. And it's not just the physical. I used to make metal for wagons, and now I'm going to make metal stuff for cars. It's like, well, it's you've got something that can do the whole job, the whole knowledge job.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. I think early career people need to um, just remain optimistic. Like it may be tough. Like we're going through this
Yeah.
transition period, and you might be like that blacksmith who has to figure out, I got to learn how to make stuff for cars now. Um, but
Yeah.
ultimately, this is just like that did. It's going to lead to far more opportunities. It's tough in this uncertain time to know what those will be.
Exactly. And that sparks two thoughts, because I'm in complete agreement, where on the, creates more jobs than it destroys. I'm a big believer in that outcome, because that's been the case 100% of the time in human technological history. And now this could be the one exception. But I also say, if it is the one exception, then it won't matter, because what we're talking about is AI can do everything. And that means no one has a job. And that means we're now in sort of a post scarcity economy, right? We're like in Star Trek, where, yeah, it can do everything, but that means no one needs to earn income, because it takes care of all of the means of production, right? And we're just, now living our best lives. So if it gets to that thing where it can take everyone's job, then we're good. So it's really just the thing where it doesn't take everyone's job. It just eliminates many job paths out there, but it's going to create new ones, because technology, no matter how disruptive, it doesn't matter what it was. We're talking about the steam engine, or you're talking about the railroads, or the personal computer, or the car. It doesn't matter. They always, without exception, led to orders of magnitude more jobs, right? Because when you saw the steam engine, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to cause mass unemployment," and it's the whole world is, this is a huge problem. They thought that there was not going to be enough work to employ the, I don't know, 50 million people in the world at the time, or whatever it was, 100 million people in the world at the time. And now there's enough
Billion.
jobs for, 7.9 of the
Yeah.
8 billion people
Yeah.
in the world, or what have you, or even for in the US, 350 million.
Somebody needs to buy the goods and services that even AI produces, right? And so
Exactly.
if it
Exactly.
puts half of the world out of work, that's not going to work. Like
Right.
so
Yeah.
so there
Because
it will work itself out. That doesn't mean though that it's not going to be
yeah,
difficult for people in at a
exactly.
who are going through the job transitions. And however, I would say
That's
it's
right.
better to be earlier in your career than to be somebody who's like totally dedicated their career to something and now they have to completely shift. Early in your career, you've got
Yeah,
plenty of
right.
time to
In your
reposition yourself. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's a little rough start. I experienced that in 2008 when my company went bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and the world, I mean, people don't remember, but that was a scary time. Like, literally, people were thinking, is the United States going to continue to exist? Like, it was scary
Yeah.
for a little bit there. So yeah, no, it's true. And that's why, and the second thought that was sparked by what you were saying, is that there's a reason, or one of the reasons I should say, that we call Pegasus higher ed for the AI age, is because what AI, or excuse me, what higher ed needs to be, or one of the things that it needs to be in the AI age is agile, right? Because whether it's skills or tools or entire career paths, they will disappear or emerge literally overnight. And, as a post-secondary institution, you need to be able to pivot in days or weeks, not in
Right.
decades or centuries, right? You have to, in order to do right by your students and the employers who are going to hire them, you need to be able to essentially move at
Yeah.
the speed of AI. And that's how we've structured the program. And interestingly enough, one of the career paths, so I wasn't going to mention this, but it is kind of perfect to this topic, which is, so I'd mentioned that our first two accelerators we're going to be launching are for software developers and product managers. But there has actually been this career path that has started to bubble up. And we've been hearing more and more employers asking us for it. And so we're actually going to be launching, when we launch, it's actually going to be either 3 accelerators, or it may just be this one that I'm about to mention, which is something that we call, and there isn't a settled name on it yet because, again, it's sort of a new role, but we call it an internal product builder, or an AI enablement specialist is another name the CEO has for it. But essentially, it is someone who is like 2 parts software developer, 2 parts product manager, 1 part designer, and 2 parts biz ops, right? And what they do is they take their product ear and they're listening not externally to customers, but the companies are turning them in, or plan to turn them internally, right? To listen to HR and legal and finance and understand their problems, right? Their friction points. And with, sort of their biz ops brain, think about the process and, what maybe could be re-engineered, but then with their engineering side of their brain, build, AI agents and AI enabled software to scale those parts of the organization and remove the friction, right, that they're running into to essentially solve their problem.
MIT just released a study that found that 95% of AI implementations have failed. It's failed to produce
Yeah.
an ROI, and I mean that goes right along with that. There's a Even though AI is so prevalent, and yeah, we can do some of these simple tasks with it, like actually
Right.
overhauling processes and systems is really tough to do. And we're trying to do it in
It,
our company, and it's hard. It's unless there's a company that has like your exact use case. We've delivered the exact thing that you need. We're all trying to, and every company's processes are different, and so that I think that's a great
exactly.
path for early career people. We're going to need lots of those people. That's a great example of like
Yeah.
that's a new career that
Right.
has sort of grows out of other careers that have already existed. But that's kind of a new distinct thing, and we're going to need lots of people doing that.
Yeah. Again, as AI or as higher ed, you need to be able to make those things. Yeah, you make those pivots and go, okay, you know what? This is kind of moving out of irrelevance, out of relevance, I should say. It's again a skill, a tool, a career path, but this is emerging. Okay, 3 days. Let's pivot so that this now, and not that you're moving with the winds, but when you're seeing fundamental shifts happening, you need to be able to move, as quickly as those again so you don't screw your students. Can we swear on this podcast? Probably. My podcast, we can swear if we want. But then also again, so that you don't screw employers and you give them, you give the auto manufacturer
Yeah.
someone who can make a buggy wheel.
Yeah. Is your program, by the way, is it in person or is it remote?
Good question. It is in person. It's hybrid where the students come in every other day, and then on the in between days, they are working remotely with their teams to continue to build the software they're working on. But it was critical to me that we built this with an in-person mindset. That the bulk of it is in person because you just cannot. Human beings cannot make that 0 to 1 journey sitting in
Yeah.
their bedrooms on Zoom.
I ask because this is something I've thought about a lot. We're a remote company primarily. We've got quite a few people in the Seattle area, so I go up there. I live in Utah, and I go up there periodically, and we'll get together in person. But we're bringing the whole company together once a year. But it is different than being in an office. We all started our careers in an office somewhere, and
Yeah.
I I remember our first vacation we went on after. I kind of think of this like the remote hybrid work and AI as like the 1-2 punch for the current generation, because a lot of them will
Right.
end up working
Right.
in hybrid or remote environments,
Yes.
and that's really
Yes.
challenging at the beginning of your career. Um, I was gonna
It
say,
is.
so first vacation after COVID, once things kind of settled down, we went to Mexico, and I was in the gym, and there was this young guy who we were sharing a machine, and he was telling me, yeah, I just had my senior year during in 2020, and I'm in my first job, and it's completely remote. He was a software developer or something like that, and can't remember what he was doing, but as he was telling me about this, he's like, yeah, I just basically work from it's just like my senior year of college. I just work from my bedroom. And I was thinking, gosh, that's thinking about all of the learning that I had that was not direct learning from being in an office.
Yes.
Seeing two people having a meeting. Maybe I didn't even hear what they were saying, but I saw their body language and how they interacted.
Yeah.
Seeing how people conflict manage, and having I learned stuff
Yes.
in conversations down the elevator with really senior people that I wouldn't otherwise have interacted with.
Absolutely.
Just like so many thousands of interactions like that you miss out on. And so I went over
Yes.
to him, and I was like
No.
starting to freak out for him, and I was like, you need to jump on this. And what I told him, and I've told other people, is you need to be really proactive. Recognize this. It's like trying to learn a language without going to a country, you know.
Yes.
And so you need
Yes.
to like
Yes.
kind of create an environment where it's like you're going to the country. So I suggested to him, pick out five
Yeah.
to 10, maybe a dozen people within your organization that you may not interact with regularly, and that you admire for some reason, their career path, what they're doing in the company, and then reach out and write a really gracious note, and or talk to them, and deliver a message that's something like, hey, I recognize that we're not going to interact on a regular basis, and I would really love to learn from you. It's basically creating your own mentors, but informal mentors, and say,
No.
can we have like a virtual lunch or virtual coffee once a month? And I'll schedule it. If it has to move around, I totally understand. I want to ask you questions, hear about your career, and some people are going to say no, but most people are going to say yes for two
Right.
reasons. One, because somebody did that for them earlier in their career, and people are willing to give back. And two, people like to talk about themselves. You're
Yeah.
someone junior
Yes. So
coming to
true.
them,
Yeah.
stroking their ego and saying, out of all the people in the organization, I picked you out because I want to be like you. Like, you have a high hit rate, and
Yeah.
you're going to
No.
be top of mind. People are going to, throughout the organization, are going to be like, this is somebody who is a go-getter. Like, they're investing in themselves, and so I
No,
want to
that's
invest
right.
in them.
It's true. I mean, where accidental collisions aren't going to happen, you need to be intentional about it rather than just let them, float on by. It's so true.
I had one pretty junior member of my team, and I explained to her, I was like, this is what you're missing out on. You don't even realize it. So we
Yeah.
started having virtual lunches more frequently, and I would just like, I'd
Mm.
tell her about McKinsey projects that I worked on, or tell her about tough
Yeah.
problems that I was currently thinking about that I wouldn't consult her on, and answer
Yeah.
questions and stuff. And I think it was useful, and I encourage her to do it with others in the organization.
And that's why I said this. I mean, the original idea was that it was going to be all in person, like every day through, for the entire year was going to be in person. The only problem was when I kind of built a financial model, the unit economics didn't work. And one of the reasons was
Oh
the
yeah.
cost of real estate was, and it's not like we were going to buy real estate or, be in the middle of LA or Manhattan, just lease rates in Boulder, Colorado, but still it wasn't working. And so then I came up with an idea where I said, well, what if we zippered the cohorts in? So for a given cohort, half of the cohort would come in every other day, and the other half would come in on, those in between days. And again, they'd work remotely on the days they weren't in. And that way I, double the productivity of my real estate, right? I could, or whatever space I lease, right? I could fit 1,000 people in a 500 person space. As soon as I did that, the unit economics snapped right into place. But I also somewhat begrudgingly admitted to myself that, you know what, this might be the better model anyway. Because then, most of these kids, when they graduate, they're going to either have a remote or a hybrid job. So they need to learn how to be effective and productive when working remotely. And so by doing this hybrid model, we kind of get the best of both worlds, where they get the, meaningful amount of in-person interactions to get all the benefits you're talking about. And they work remotely, so they do learn how to
Yeah.
work
Well,
remotely.
plus I think that actually is more akin to how people learn. Some time on their own, just deep study, deep focus, and then coming together to collaborate,
It's
to
true.
ask questions and dig deeper.
Awesome. Well, we are nearing the end, or I would say right about at the end. So first, I want to thank Adam Hopson, COO of Flyhomes, for joining us today on No Entry Level. This has been fantastic, very thoughtful conversation. I love these kind. They are the best.